Welcome back to Opinion Journal Live. I'm joined now by Assistant Editorial Page Editor James Freeman, who's here to talk about President Obama's affordable education platform and whether or not it's actually going to make college cheaper for students. James, welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here. Yeah, that's a big question.
It's a big question. And, you know, the Democrats and the president have said that people like Paul Ryan are going to increase costs for college students because they're going to cut back on things like Pell Grants. Is that truth or fiction, James?
Well, it's really amazing. If you look at it over recent decades, just about the only industry where costs have risen faster than in healthcare is education. And it pretty much parallels the growth in government subsidies, loans, Pell Grants. So all of these efforts to make college more affordable really just end up creating a lot more money for colleges to then give them the room to raise their prices. And so if you really wanted to help someone, you would give the grant only to them. If you give it to everybody, then the price of the good just rises.
How do you reform this system then, James? What do you do when a lot of people look at college today and they say, I have to have a college degree,
right, because
if I don't, well, you know, my earnings prospects, my employment prospects in this terrible economy are really limited.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if at some point there's going to be a correction in how we value college education, because it's absolutely true. If you look at the numbers, and this recent bout of high unemployment is very it's stark in terms of people with a college degree having much lower rates of unemployment than those without. At the same time, we've also kind of devalued college degrees in terms of lots of new majors that people who went to school 20, 30, 40 years ago may kind of shake their heads and laugh about. So I'm not sure that ultimately all of these investments in education are going to be valuable, but obviously you need a highly skilled workforce and you need a well-educated population if you want to compete in the knowledge industries that we do.
Well, James, is part of this burden of student debt a problem because we have such a moribund economy? Because in normal times, taking on debt like this for a student wouldn't be such a big problem to pay off.
Yeah, you'd have a little more hope that you could generate the earnings to pay it off. And this is, in a way, this is the most depressing part of the Obama message, because he's saying to young people, basically, instead of, here's all the opportunity in our economy, here are all the good things you can look forward to and the opportunities you can seize, he's basically saying, I'm going to help you manage this disaster. You've got a huge debt. You don't see a way out of it now. Very high unemployment rates for youth. And if you look at underemployment rates, well into double digits, really scary. You know, he's basically talking about managing a terrible situation as opposed to how do we take this degree you've just earned and all your youthful energy and creativity and channel that into economic growth.
And sort of incentivizing these students to go get useless PhDs in these arcane topics because the money is cheap and the taxpayers are paying for it.
Well, that's the other part of the very specific set of policies over the years to give people incentive to take on more student debt and then to avoid some of it if they go into certain sectors that are approved by the government. Public service jobs, which is actually, it's a very broad category. So anyone kind of going into the nonprofit realm is going to get a break on paying back loans. And, you know, as an economy, is that really what we want, is to encourage more people to go into pursuits that by definition don't create wealth?
Okay, but James, the president wouldn't be out on the campaign trail today talking about affordable education if he didn't think that it was in his political interest to do so. You know, students were a big part of the Obama surge in '08. He got a lot of money from them, a lot of campaign energy. How do Republicans respond to this? And is that vote actually up for grabs? Is that what his push is saying?
It might be similar to Medicare, where education has always been kind of a Democratic issue, but this time it has an edge. You see on the Medicare side that usually a big advantage for Democrats, but since he eliminated a lot of the planned spending there and moved it into Obamacare, that now has a liability for the president. On the education side, he's saying more money, more loans, more grants. But the reason he's out there on all these college campuses, you mentioned how excited the kids were last time in 2008. They are not as excited. They are looking at a terrible job market. They're looking at all this debt. And so as he's saying, I'm going to give you a break on this debt since you can't afford it, since a lot of you are going to be out of work. He's not actually saying that, but that's the reality. What the Republicans are coming back with is saying, okay, let's look at the unemployment rate for young people, and not just the student debt, look at all the federal debt. I think that's going to be a big part of the response from Romney and Ryan, is to say, you know, where are we, 16 trillion federal debt, who's going to pay that? You're handing this bill generally to college kids, along with the specific bills they have on student loans.
James, let's step back. Can you talk about this affordable education push in a broader sense, in which the president is going out and targeting specific groups with certain kinds of handouts to get their vote? It's not just college students, is it?
Well, it's, I mean, the loan programs are available for graduate students as well.
But I'm talking about bigger things. You pass the temporary immigration measure to appeal to Hispanics. You have voter ID to scare minorities into voting Democratic. Is this part of a kind of a larger, to my mind, fear campaign to get people to the polls for Democrats?
It's interesting you mention that, because I look at what he's doing as very much a base election strategy. This is most of what he spends his time talking about. You break down, you go through an Obama campaign speech, the typical stump speech. It is mainly a collection of appeals to particular interest groups that he needs to get heavy turnout from. And therefore, I think one conclusion you draw from that is, I don't know if he's given up on independent voters in the middle, or he's written them off, but he's certainly thinking that at least some of them are no longer persuadable, or at least worth a whole lot of his time and effort to bring in. So I think, you know, you're talking about young people giving more handouts,
hooking them in.
The various, you know, the attacks on business, on both Mr. Romney's business career and on small business people generally. You know, you didn't build that. Beyond that, the comment, you say you worked hard. Well, a lot of people work hard. This is not a message crafted for the independent voter. This is going after a hardcore of anti-business, big government constituency in the Democratic Party. And so I think, you know, if I'm in the Romney campaign, as bad as it is, maybe I'm a little encouraged that he seems to be giving up on the middle.
Okay, well, Assistant Editorial Page Editor James Freeman, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Mary.